I'm Jared Greenville from the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, where I head up the Trade and International Division. Now, obviously, we've heard a lot this morning that Australian agriculture has a large role and is closely connected to the world and closely connected to our region. And the work that we do in the department, and particularly in my division, is to look at attempts to maintain, improve and promote market access, but also importantly, to build a system where we have international trade rules that are open, predictable and based on science. And the reason we do that is to both promote our own and deliver on our own food security objectives, but to also help play that role that Australian agriculture can play in international and in particularly our region in their food security. And to do so, one of the things that always strikes me is that building food security and building trading relationships and the like is more than just kind of market access and getting access to different countries. It's about relationships and it's about partnerships, both across our region, further afield, but also across international fora. And bringing people together to help make decisions and to also build the evidence base on which trade and other decisions get made. And so this is a good example of one of those events. We also in DAF are responsible for our network of international counsellors, people who are posted overseas that help kind of provide that on-the-ground interaction and links with our trading partners and others in the agricultural ecosystem. And a large part of their role and our role is bringing together government, industry, technical experts together to help us kind of understand what's going on and help us to try and find some shared solutions to often common problems. And so and a good example of that is working with our international partners on agricultural and climate issues, like those that you heard this morning in the panel. And we look to kind of promote both productivity, resilience and competitiveness and reducing emissions in a sense that no outcome can be at the expense of another. And today's session and today's what we've got on now reflects really why this international work is really important and helps to showcase some of Australia's investment in agricultural research across the region and why it matters. We've heard that climate change, food insecurity, biosecurity threats and supply chain disruptions, they don't stop at national borders. And research partnerships can help our neighbours lift their agricultural productivity and strengthen livelihoods, also improve food security and build greater resilience to the challenge of climate and economic shocks. There are important benefits here for Australia as well. Working with other countries helps us better understand and manage pests and diseases, and you heard Vic talk about that this morning. It helps us build a shared, stronger biosecurity system and stronger supply chains that deliver for both us and our regional partners. Now, the 4 case studies that we have today for this session bring all this to life and provide a really kind of good, grounded feel for how research can deliver practical solutions for a far more resilient rice and cropping systems and productive uses of waste and better management of threats to banana production. The simple message is that a more productive, resilient and food secure region benefits everyone. It strengthens regional stability and supports the relationships, supply chains and trading partnerships on which agriculture all depends. So now I'll stop talking and I'll start to invite our speakers up on stage, and I'm excited to introduce them all. So first up we'll have Professor Jaquie Mitchell, and I'll get everyone to then come up on the panel as we go before we start the talks. Professor of Agronomy and Director of Research School at the Agriculture and Food Sustainability at the University of Queensland. He'll be joined by Kylie Porter, Head of Sustainability at the SunRice Group. And they'll be sharing a unique public-private producer partnership with Vietnam, one of Australia's most energetic agricultural and economic partners. Second, we have Dr. Mohammed Mainuddin from CSIRO, presenting cropping systems in the Ganges Delta. Third, and I know Dennis is here, we've got Dr. Dennis Beesigamukama from the International Centre of Insect Physiology and Ecology in Kenya, who's here to tell us about the huge impact that a tiny black soldier fly from Africa can have on the Pacific. And lastly, we have Dr. Tony Patterson from the Queensland Department of Primary Industries on stopping tropical race 4, the global race to save bananas. So each speaker will have 15 minutes and then we'll be followed by a Q&A. And I know everyone's been quite engaged, so I'd like to see that continue. But for now, I'd like to hand over to Jaquie and Kylie to present Climate Smart Premium Rice and Securing Future Value Chains in the Mekong Delta.
Just got to work out which glasses. On behalf of the project team, it's an absolute privilege to share the outcomes, impact, and the lessons that we can learn from the 4-year market-led public-private partnership project that we have just completed. Why the Mekong? Rice is one of the world's most important food crops to ensure food security for about half the global population. Vietnam is the 5th largest producer of rice and the 3rd largest rice exporter. 53% of Vietnam rice is produced in the Mekong Delta, contributing to 90% of its export market to over 150 countries around the globe. In addition, rice provides livelihoods for more than 1.5 million smallholder farmers in the Mekong alone. So rice is absolutely critical. But behind those staggering numbers, there's persistent challenges. You can see in some of the images there. Rice is typically sold for cash at the farm gate. It's very transactional spot market. It's fragmented production. There's overuse of inputs. There's a dependency on middlemen who every year need to transport more than 25 million tonnes of rice around the Mekong to the various actors in the value chain. Hence, because of the fragmentation, it's very difficult for smallholder farmers to engage in a high-value export market. So the question was, how can we help small-scale farmers break this cycle? When we proposed this project, it was at a time where there was interest in the government with a shift in policy from quantity to quality. They wanted to also engage in that in a sustainable fashion. They wanted to increase farmer livelihoods, ensure the adoption of climate-smart rice varieties, reduce the chemical inputs, increase the value chain efficiency, ensure that standards are being met, best practice, and more recently with the 1 million hectare initiative, reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. At the same time, SunRice invested in a mill. I think it was around 2018. And so to ensure ensuring their market security and global sourcing. And so this provided a really unique opportunity to encourage smallholder farmers to engage directly in the SunRice established high-quality export market with them shifting towards a sustainable production system. So the project aimed to establish a highly productive, sustainable, traceable, quality-assured value chain for tropical short-grain varieties, benefiting rice farming households and meeting established SunRice market requirements. The project was delivered through a collaboration, transdisciplinary, public-private partnership that combined the scientific expertise, research capability, and technical knowledge of public sector partners with SunRice's expertise across the value chain. We used a systems thinking approach. Now, for those of you who have worked in systems thinking in terms of mapping it with CLDs, they get very complicated with all the feedback loops. For today's presentation, This is the simple schematic that I'm sharing, but it was a systems thinking approach. It's required, it's essential. We won't make impact if we don't use a systems thinking approach. So we have a smallholder farmers. We need to collect them in cooperatives to deliver and supply as a group to the SunRice mill. SunRice then can ensure traceability and provenance and access that high quality market, provided that production system has been done to the sustainability standards as well as the maximum residual limit that's acceptable. So engaging farmers directly with SunRice required a lot of effort to build trust and relationships. And so our project team on the ground, Anzang University, Kanto University, Coolong Rice Research Institute, and of course the various entities of the SunRice Group, all came together to strengthen that relationship and partnership between smallholder farmers via cooperatives to enter into the SunRice value chain, with profits being shared back to the smallholder farmer. But not only profits, the support of SunRice agronomists and inputs to ensure that smallholders are able to make that a success. In terms of the key outputs and outcomes, the project engaged with 7 cooperatives across 3 provinces, directly involved 104 smallholder households, benefiting more than 500 people. They facilitated 289 production contracts covering more than 2,000 hectares and delivering more than 15,000 tonnes of sustainably produced wet paddy directly to the SunRice mill. Now that, going from a spot market to a delivery system where the farmers are responsible to deliver to the mill as the point of receival and receive payment via a bank account after they've sent an invoice 7 to 10 days after receival, was a huge mindset change and shift that was required. And so that was where the project was really fundamental, building the relationships and confidence in the smallholder farmers to engage in this high quality export market value chain. In doing so, we worked and strengthened with the local capability and through a network of 21 agricultural extension officers and 181 community-based extension leaders. Importantly, we supported the next generation of agricultural professionals through the engagement of 51 students. This is a 4-year project, 51 students, that's pretty impressive. 33 of those were undergraduates from Anzang University who had the opportunity to work at the SunRice mill, so the commercial mill, at the centre of excellence that was co-located at the commercial mill. So really fantastic in terms of building the skills and capacity in relation to post-harvest technologies and advancement in commercial production. We also had 11 master's students and 7 PhDs, one of which was Kanto University's graduate. Also generating a lot of new knowledge and more than 24 peer-reviewed publications and presentations. In terms of market-led research for development outputs, we spanned across the value chain, which you would expect. We were able to develop a new variety, again, an outstanding performance on the behalf of the Coolong Rice Research Institute team. They were able to develop a variety within 4 years. It's extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. In terms of working, we worked on the ground with Kanto University, helping us to encourage with farmers to produce more rice with less. Reduced fertiliser inputs, reduced seeding rates, reduced chemical, increased integration of IPM, integrated pest management, and alternate wetting and drying was introduced as a water management strategy. A really important finding was from the post-harvest team, who identified that the delivery window could be extended from 12 hours to 24 hours, which made a huge impact in terms of the logistics for both the smallholder farmer and the co-op, as well as the exporter in terms of risk management. And of course, where appropriate, project evidence was translated to policy guidelines. So integrated innovations from breeding right through to policy improved grain quality, resource use efficiency, and value across the rice supply chain. In terms of project impact, where it matters is at the farm gate. Farmers that were engaged in the project, on average, increased their profits by 10.5%. This came about because of a decrease in the production costs with the reductions in the inputs, as well as an increase in the premium price. Overall, the medium grain variety that we set out to establish, which again is very niche for the region, contracted farmers earned 19.5% greater profit than DT8, which is a fragrant long grain variety. What did that mean for the community? We could clear impact when we visited at the end of the project compared to the beginning of the project. Farmers have built new homes. Women are more engaged in the decision-making processes. And younger families, or younger adults, were deciding to stay in the communes because they saw that there was an opportunity for them. Most striking was the stronger sense of optimism and well-being that was evident throughout the community. The sustainability pathway and impact plan were designed not only to embed lasting change in participating communities, but also to provide a practical, transferable framework for future value chain interventions, utilising, for example, this SunRice value chain model to feed into development pathways. We were very fortunate. A year after our project commenced, the 1 million hectare initiative development project commenced, and our results and outputs feed directly into that, which is, again, fantastic and requirement. In terms of key message, market-led systems approaches create shared value, amplifying community voices while building climate-smart, profitable, inclusive rice value chains that strengthen food security. In terms of practical recommendations, invest in trusted relationships, partnerships, focused on cooperative-centred contract farming, strengthening relationships across the value chain. Looking forward, there's a need to scale low-emission, high-quality rice systems across Southeast Asia, and we should be building on models such as this one to and using shared platforms to ensure strong investment in this space. In closing, by aligning markets, partnerships and people, we can build the resilient food systems needed to feed a growing world sustainably. Before I finish up, I just want to acknowledge the many smallholder farmers and actors that were very open in their giving of information that we could capture and share back with them. The Anzang University team, the Kanto University team, the Coolong Rice Research team were fantastic to work with the DARDS and the Department of Environment. And of course, the SunRice Group for both their in-kind support on the ground was fantastic. And of course, the funding from both SunRice and ACR. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mitchell. At SunRice Group, we're incredibly proud of our role in ACR, and I think Jackie's done a really good job in outlining how a market-led systems approach can create shared value in the Mekong. I've been asked to speak to you about the one phrase, the market, and to answer the question why a commercial rice food company would show up for work of this kind and what does it take for us to stay. I should mark the occasion because as we meet here today at Parliament House, President To Lam is in Canberra for the first state visit to Australia by a Vietnamese head of state, which is an expression at the very highest level of the strategic partnership between our two nations, which was affirmed in 2024. And for us, ACR is a really good example of how this partnership works practically on a rice paddy. So firstly, let me take a moment to explain who SunRice is. We are a global rice food company operating in over 10 countries and selling products in over 50 markets. We manufacture a range of products, but rice is at our heart. However, we are not a volume player in rice. We compete on providing quality rice, a premium product delivered to consumers under brands that they trust, and from a sustainability perspective, with a vision to provide increasingly traceable, lower emissions rice. Our distinguishing strength is our vertical integration, from paddy to plate, and that is what we do in Vietnam. So why ACR? I'll be candid about our motive. It's absolutely not philanthropic. It's a commercial response to a commercial problem. How does one secure a dependable supply of premium, residue-compliant, sustainably grown rice from a delta in which most grain passes through fragmented, volatile spot markets? And the answer is the project that we built, the project of having a traceable, contract-based value chain, moving the rice grain almost entirely off the spot market and into 100% compliance with residue standards, those standards that our customers require. To a researcher, they are outcomes. To a food company, they are something more fundamental: supply security and the integrity and value of a premium brand. And here is one of the points I want to leave you with, because it's where commercial and community interests genuinely converge. For that chain to serve us, it must first serve the farmer. And we have proven, and Jackie's presentation showed you a lot of that ACR does just that. Farmer incomes have risen by about 10%, costs have fallen, inputs are used with far greater care. And the 10% increase in income is not incidental to our strategy. It's about improving the livelihoods of the communities we source from, and is one of the ways that SunRice defines its success as a company. Provenance for us is not a marketing word, it's people and its place. But I would caution you against reading that as goodwill alone. The arrangement endures and will continue to endure precisely because the farmer's interest and ours are aligned by design and not by sentiment. But there is a transferable skill here, and the transferable lesson is the research itself and the hard work that the team within ACR does. Excellent research is not complete just when it's published. It's complete when it reaches a market. This program has succeeded because it is a true partnership between the public sector, academia, and private enterprise. The integration of research into a functioning value chain is what has enabled the agronomy to convert into income and hopefully pave the way for Mark II of ACR. So what lies ahead? The opportunity is the development of a high-value, fragrant rice market in Vietnam, establishing Vietnamese premium and specialty rice in the world's most discerning markets, as provenance has done for other regions, including Australia. This provenance is part of our ambition and is why the next phase of research is deliberately aligned with the 1 million hectares low emissions rice project. So in closing, the theme of this conference is emerging voices and regional integration in a service of a food secure world. The smallholder farmer in the Mekong is that emerging voice, and a market-led value chain is an instrument that allows them to be heard. Aligned markets, partnerships and people, as my friend Jaquie has said, and the food security, farmer prosperity and a premium brand ceases to compete. They begin to compound, and that's exactly where we see the magic happen. Thank you.
Is this going to work? Yes, excellent. I thought I'd stay down this end, but thank you again to Jaquie and Kylie for that great start to this session. I'd now like to turn to our second speaker, Dr. Mohammed Mainuddin, Senior Principal Research Scientist at CSIRO Environment. Now, the salt-affected coastal Ganges Delta of Bangladesh and West Bengal support over 20 million people, and it's critical for food security, biodiversity and livelihoods. Today, we'll hear about transdisciplinary integrated research and how this has transformed agriculture in a region challenged by salinity, natural disasters and climate change. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. I am going to talk about our more than a decade of work in the coastal zone, salt-affected coastal zone of the Ganges Delta in Bangladesh and West Bengal, India. So the region is a low-lying deltaic region. It's only 1 meter above the sea level, or not 2 meter above the sea level. There are in the lower part, 65% of the area is affected by various degrees of salinity. Groundwater and surface water is saline in the dry season. There is very little water in the dry season for irrigation, but in the monsoon there are a lot of water and often causes a flood. This is only one crop grows in the region, that is the rice in the monsoon season. So it is a monocrop region. And then one of the most worst affected area in terms of climate change that is designated by IPCC. Yet they are only in the lower part of the region. 20 million people live and they are facing severe food insecurity and limited livelihood opportunities. So this project we have started in 2015, which is funded by the ACR and Krishi Gobeshona Foundation of Bangladesh, led by CSIRO with a partnership of Murdoch University, 4 organizations from India, and 5 organizations from Bangladesh. So it was in 2 phases. First phase was in 2015 to 2020, and then later from 2020 to up until now, it is finishing in next month. So I acknowledge all the contributor, my partner organization, and also the funding agency, ACR and KGF, who has funded this project. So in the first phase, we looked at to understand the problem in the coastal zone. So we did a lot of modeling to understand like surface water, groundwater, and salinity interaction. We did a lot of electromagnetic scaling to understand the salinity distribution in the soil, that vertical and 3-dimensional salinity distribution in the soil. We did salt and water balance model at the polder level, that how they interact with the cropping in the field. And also we looked at the EPSI modeling to understand the crop production process. With that, we also did a lot of experiment to test different crops to understand the soil, salt, water, plant relationships. It's about introduction of new salt-tolerant varieties, testing different crops just to that what can be grown, what is not possible, and then also look at the various aspects of agronomic management of these crops. So some of these, like we did a lot of experiment to understand the date of sowing, when we can sow the crop so that we can avoid the late season salinity stress in the crop. We did a lot of crop establishment method like zero tillage, dibbling, even transplanting for crops, which is usually shown, and then relay cropping. We did a lot of experiment on irrigation because there is limited amount of water. We tried mixing of saline water with the fresh water and then irrigate it at different stages. And then there is a water logging problem sometimes in the high, because of untimely high rainfall in the dry season. So we tried to also did a lot of experiment on the drainage. So obviously, then we also worked on how we can store water. In the monsoon season, there are a lot of water. There is no shortage of water at all. So we can store those water in the ponds and canals if we can manage this properly, and then use this stored water in the dry season for life-saving irrigation of the crops. And for that, we have worked with the community. We organize the community how they can store water in the canal by providing a temporary bond, and also then we also organize re-excavation of some of the canal as an example, so that they can use this re-excavated canal to store water and then use that water for irrigation in the dry season. So what strategies we that found that with all this modeling and understanding, we found that it is possible to grow crops in the dry season. There are 4 pillars of that. Currently there is a long duration rice in the monsoon season. So we introduce short duration rice with high yield. So that gives us additional we can harvest that rice in 2 to 4 weeks early. Then immediately we can provide drainage so that we can drain excess water from the field. And then we go for zero tillage sowing of different crops without any plowing, and then cover them with the mulch so that it prevents evapotranspiration from the soil, and also use this residual soil moisture for most of the part of the cropping season. We may need 1 or 2 irrigation at the end. So that prevent early harvesting, and when the salinity creeps up, before that we can harvest the crop. So that is the 4 pillars that we can see. Use short duration rice, drainage, then use the mulch, and cover the crop. So 2 of our technologies that is very prominently came up. One is this growing vegetable with rice in the monsoon season. In the monsoon season, this area is covered all with water. So there is very little area to grow any vegetables. So most of the vegetables at that area then comes from outside, and then they are very high cost. So we introduce a method that they can place bag into the rice field and grow different climbing type vegetables, and that was found very suitable in that area, that many households can grow their own vegetable from few of these bag placed in the rice field. The other technology that came up very prominent, this is our benchmark technology now, which called the zero tillage potato cultivation. Potato is cultivated in a very oil plowed condition, but here we found that in the wet soil, after harvesting of rice, we can just place the potato seed on the wet soil with some fertilizer mix, and then cover them with the mulch, straw mulch. Potato is grown under this straw mulch, and based on the residual soil moisture, sometimes we need 1 or 2 irrigation at the end. And then when the potato is mature, we can just remove the straw and get harvest the potato. It's very easy and very low cost of production. Of course, we also did a lot of other crops. So managed to cultivate like wheat, watermelon, sunflower, garlic, and a range of other crops. We have tested, and we found that they can be grown using zero tillage and with mulch. In the second phase, then we started our work only in the three areas in the coastal zone, 2 in Bangladesh and 1 in West Bengal. In the second phase, we wanted to take this to bigger scale and to understand the whole region. So what we did in that, we integrated, wanted to understand the whole region through remote sensing. We analyzed 20 years of data through remote sensing to understand how the land use has changed, how water is receding, so that we can identify places where to grow hot crops. We then did also large-scale electromagnetic survey, and then integrated that with the remote sensing to prepare a map of the soil salinity for the whole coastal zone that can guide us what crops can be grown at what places. We did climate change analysis for the future and current, and then with other indicators, we developed a risk and vulnerability map at the lower administrative level. There are 90 administrative blocks that we have prepared a risk map for, as you can see. And we have also then developed a priority matrix that which area is very easy, that low risk can be immediately prioritized for development. And then, as you can see, the matrix in the corner, bottom corner, left corner, that this is the matrix that we are prepared. We then integrated all these into a web-based platform with FC modeling, and we develop a decision support system through which we can make a decision that what crop can be grown at what time and what would be potential yield and the benefit. We also did a lot of socioeconomic and value chain analysis because there are a lot of new crops. We need to understand that how farmers can get the benefit out of this crop. That has resulted, we also did a lot of expansion in the area. So we have set up large-scale demonstration all over the coastal zone, as you can see in the map. And then every year, the number of farmers has increased. So directly involved over 17,000 farmers over 5 years directly worked with us in that place. And every year, the number of farmers increase, and then large number of these farmers are women. This is the difference of the area that in 2028 and 2018 and 2024, and we can see that green areas where we have our intervention and the difference is shown, while most green is the area that where a lot of changes happened. As you can see in this area that where we have intervened, there are a lot of changes happened. And then the figures on the right-hand side shows 2 islands in the West Bengal where we have the pink dot shows where we have set up our zero tillage demonstration, and the green dot shows the area where farmers has adopted this technology of zero tillage potato. We did study the impact of this on the socioeconomy, livelihood improvement. We did this defeat human capital framework, defeat livelihood framework to understand the human social and benefit. We have improved, directly improved livelihood and food security of over 17,000 farmers. Over the 5 years, only from our demonstration plot, we have grown extra 4,500 tons of rice, which can provide food security of 6,000 people over 5 years. So this is just from the farmers who worked with us directly, but not the other who has already adopted. So we have through our work, we have empowered women and improved knowledge of women farmers in the region. We did a lot of capacity building, and we developed a cohort of scientists for the whole coastal region. So we have 27 PhD students work with us, 7 in Australia from JEF Fellowship, 10 in Bangladesh, 10 in India, and most of them almost finished their work, only few remains. We have also supported a lot of master students. We organized a lot of training for the farmers. And then also we did a lot of communication activities to reach out to communicate our technologies to the farmers. And we also organized a lot of training for our scientists. We brought them here, allowed them to participate in different conferences and workshops and opportunities to also work with us at CSIRO and Murdoch University. Obviously, we are scientists. We like publishing paper as well. So while doing all this, we also managed to publish a lot. So far, we have published over 102 journal articles in peer-reviewed articles. Some of the science that we have developed in that region has been used in Australia, like the EM methodologies that we have developed for yield variate analysis. We have made a lot of contribution to FSIM modeling that adapted FSIM to the complex coastal saline environment. And then also there is a large global impact. And the one I would like to highlight is that zero tillage potato cultivation has been taken up by international potato centers. Now they are promoting it in Asia, South Asia, even in African countries, and also in Latin America, in Peru. So they picked up our paper in the International European Potato Journal, contacted us, and then took that technology, discussed with us. Now they are promoting the technology in many other water scars and other affected area. We have a lot of communication and dissemination activities, that we organized a lot of workshops. There are 11 episodes of TV program that was in Bangladesh National Television. that from the project activities, one in India. We have many of our scientists participated in the TB interview. We have also communicated our technologies through a song and dance drama of 20 minutes, which our NGO partner played it all about the coastal zone. We had SCR also published our in several blog posts, and we have a lot of newspaper stories on our project. We have quite a few achievements. This project has been featured in the Australia-India roadmap work. Australia-India roadmap work launched by the Prime Minister Albanese in last year in May. That ACR Commission visited our project site in this remote area in 2023. We received a couple of awards from CSIRO, Effective Communication of Science, and Impact Award, Agriculture Impact Award. And also, there are also high-level visits and additional funding from the government and DFED. So, lesson learned. So, the coastal zone always considered as a wicked problem with intractable limitations. So we thought that nothing can be grown in that area, but we have managed to grow, and that was possible because of integrated research on all disciplines and the large that we have worked in that for long period. This is an example of true collaboration between Australian, Indian, and Bangladeshi scientists. The methodology we have developed are applicable in other mega deltas, and obviously we have a lot more to do, considering that other aspects of agriculture like livestock, fisheries, and drinking water and other issues. Thank you.
Another excellent, tangible example. We'll keep moving, and now I'd like to welcome Dr. Dennis Beesigamukama, postdoctoral fellow from the International Centre of Insect Physiology and Ecology in Nairobi. He's come all the way. So costly agricultural inputs and climate change are constraining agricultural productivity across the Pacific. The use of black soldier fly in transforming low-grade organic waste into feeds, fertilisers and other products has emerged as a solution. We'll hear about that now.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to present to you about the power of the small insects, the small creatures with big impact. And like the moderator has said, I'll present to you about the journey of a wonderful insect called black soldier fly from Africa to the Pacific. But before that, I will tell you about the institution where I work. I work at the International Centre of Insect Physiology and Ecology, called icipe. It's an international research organization headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya, but it works across 41 African countries. And our focus is on research and promotion of insect-based solutions for food security and livelihood enhancement, as well as climate resilience. So we have some staff from over 40 countries globally, and we have a strong capacity building program whereby we host almost 200 postgraduate students from across the globe. And then we collaborate widely to promote our technologies. And our business is insects, and we deal with both the bad insects and good insects. And the good news for today is that I'm going to talk about the good insects. So, and what do? We look at insects as tools for providing solutions to the socioeconomic and development challenges, especially in the developing countries, and with focus majorly in Africa. And as in most developing countries, we have an interconnection of challenges, especially from waste, food insecurity, climate change, and heavy reliance on imports of agro-inputs, especially feeds and fertilizer. Yet our farmers do not really have coping mechanisms, and there are no local solutions. So as icipe, we are looking at insects as an entry point to provide solutions to these challenges, and we look at insects in circular bioeconomy whereby we look at insects in a closed nutrient loop to contribute to one health through improvement of plant health, using insect-based fertilizers and biorationals for soil health management and crop yield enhancement, animal health using insect larval biomass as ingredients for feed formulation and enhancement of animal productivity and health, then using insects for waste management to improve environmental health, but also enhance pollination services and biodiversity conservation, and then finally insects for human health, looking at how we can manage the bad insects to ensure that there is human health, and when you combine those, then we have one health. But then there are also other applications of insects in the production of some unique products like chitin and oils that go into the pharmaceutical industries. And so today we promote more than 10 edible insect species, including the black soldier fly, whose short form is BSF. And when you look at these interventions, globally they align with more than 14 sustainable development goals. So the insect I want to present to you about today is called the black soldier fly. Perhaps you have seen this, maybe, during a nature walk. But this is an insect that survives on decomposable organic wastes. Although it survives on decomposable organic wastes, it's not a pest and it's not a vector. So it's not a threat to you. We call it a farmer's friend because it turns challenges into opportunities. And how does it do it? This insect lays its eggs in organic waste, and then when they hatch, the maggots or larvae break down wastes and reduce smell and reduce pollution, and at low temperatures reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But looking at the farmer's perspective, the insect can offer more than that, and especially at the larval stage. So the larval stage is the one which has the highest appetite. It's the one which breaks down wastes. And when it breaks down waste, it gives us two value-added products, especially the insect larval biomass that is rich in nutrients, proteins, fatty acids, name them, and minerals that the animals need for health. And then the residual biomass is an excellent source of organic fertilizer for restoring soil health. And I'm glad from the morning there has been much focus on soil health and local-based solutions. So this insect also contributes to that. And a typical example is that this insect does this within record time. For example, if you have 1 ton of organic waste, this insect has capacity to give you animal feed ingredients in form of insect larvae within 9 days. And if it delays so much, 2 weeks. You have your ingredients for feed formulation. Now, when we look at our farmers in Africa who rely on fishing, on the fish meal or silverfish and soybean as animal feed ingredients that also double as human food, we look at this insect as a tool for reducing competition between man and his animals. The soybean that would have used to formulate feeds is now freed and taken into the human food chain. And then this also is key, especially this insect, since it grows within 2 weeks, it means you can harvest it 26 times a year. Compared to soybean in Africa, we harvest it only twice. That is if climate change impacts don't hit and you harvest nothing. But that is not to reduce the value of soybean. So then the other angle is the residual biomass that remains is an excellent source of organic fertilizer. And we are looking at this insect as an accelerator of the natural composting process, which in most African settings takes 6 months. But when you use the insects, they're able to reduce the time to produce organic fertilizer from 6 months to 1 month. Now, this is key in availing these fertilizer inputs for farmers, but it means the technology can also be scaled. And mostly for climate change, it reduces the greenhouse gas emissions because the bioconversion process takes place at very low temperatures, less than 35, which means there are limited greenhouse gas emissions and efficient nutrient extraction by the insect. So today, before I take you to the journey of the black soldier fly, which perhaps this is part, I want to tell you some of the milestones that icipe has been able to achieve through the funding from Asia that has happened since 2014. And so we have conducted research and been able to develop insect-based feeds. And so far, more than 50 feed prototypes have been developed for different animals, for livestock and fish, and also your pets. And why should you mind about insects for your pets? Because there are very little allergic reactions when you use insects. We have developed these for the different classes of animals. So you have the chicks, for example, growers, finishers, broilers, and all that. And these formulations are available for the private sector to take up. But before they uptake them, we have conducted multidisciplinary research to validate the benefits of these insect-based feed products on animal production. And we have realized that in general, animals reach market size earlier due to accelerated growth, which means the farmers save from the cost of feed and labor and can fetch premium prices. But also, there is higher body weight gain, and the nutritional value of the animal products, the meat and eggs, is improved, especially proteins and minerals. And then for animals like pigs, the lauric acid that is present in the fats of these animals is key in the management of diarrhea, because it has antibacterial activities. And then also the chitin helps in metabolism, in improving the metabolism, thus reducing the greenhouse gas emissions. We have extended this into dairy, cattle, and goats, and realized improved yields of milk, as well as the nutritional quality, and most importantly, the profit margins for farmers using these technologies. You would say we have also extended to interact with consumers to ask them the knowledge, attitudes, and perceptions, as well as willingness to use these insect-based feed products, and we realized up to 90% of the farmers, feed processors are willing to use these products. The other angle I told you is the organic fertilizer. After getting the feed, the residual biomass that remains is an excellent source of organic fertilizer. And fertilizer is a critical challenge in the continent where I come from, in Africa, because we rely heavily on imports from Europe and America. And yet, even those imports, the inorganic fertilizers contain up to 5 nutrients, and the crop requires almost between 18 and 21 nutrients, meaning that then also being in the tropics, there is high organic matter oxidation, and so our soils are deficient of organic matter. We need locally based solutions for boosting soil organic matter and increasing nutrient availability beyond the 3 macronutrients. And so these fertilizers provide an excellent source of those nutrients to restore our soils. And we found that these fertilizers, one, they contain higher nutrient levels compared to the ordinary compost that you produce in your backyard, up to between 3 and 9-fold higher nutrients. And then, so based on this evidence, we have been able to develop more than 20 diversified flash fertilizer products for different crops and then management of pests and diseases. So we have for annual crops, we have majorly the powdered formulations that release nutrients very fast. And then for perennial crops, we have granulated this flash fertilizer to synchronize nutrient demand with release and reduce wastage and environmental challenges. And then we have also developed liquid flash fertilizer formulations that are able now to to be mixed with irrigation water and fortify them with chitin to control pests and diseases. So we have also validated the performance of these flash fertilizers on different crops and soils, and we realized improved soil fertility in terms of nutrients, organic matter, and acidity reduction. And then this translates into more than 20% increase in yield compared to your ordinary organic fertilizer and 10% compared to the synthetic NPK fertilizers. And then these improvements also lead to increased income or profits of 44%. This is for farmers who buy the fertilizers, but we realize that for those who make the fertilizers at home and directly use it on the farm, they make more than 250% higher profit, meaning that the local adaptation of this technology at household level would play a key role in transforming agriculture. Then the nutritional value of the crops is also improved when we use these fertilizers, providing a holistic solution to food insecurity and malnutrition. So based on this evidence, we have been able to carefully develop the insect-based value chain for private sector to take up. And the first line is the livestock and fish feed. Then the other one is the food products that come from the animals and crops grown using insect-derived agro-inputs. Then we have the organic fertilizers. Then the oil from the insect can be used as a feedstock for biodiesel. And then chitin and chitosan can be used to develop in biotherapeutic industries to develop functional feeds, and also in drug discovery. And then the other products include skincare products like soaps, massage oils, and all that, mosquito repellents, and the rest. Then we have also embarked on how we can transfer this technology now to the stakeholders by building partnerships, and we also train different stakeholders. So far, we have been able to train more than 165 farmers, extension officers, postgraduate students, and postdocs. I'm a beneficiary. And then this has also ensured the establishment of more than 3,000 enterprises across Africa. And to ensure sustainable commercialization, we have worked with the African Union to establish harmonized continental standards on edible insect value chains to increase confidence and ensure quality control. And then this is the spread of these technologies across Africa. Of course, much is in East Africa, where icipe is mostly located, but we are now scaling these technologies. Using this evidence, we are scaling these technologies from Kenya to the rest of the world. And one of those parts of the world is the Pacific region, whereby we are focusing on Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Vanuatu. And we are doing this courtesy of the funding from ASIA, ASIA being the first donor that funded this insect-based research, and also funding these target countries, established online engagements with stakeholders from Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Vanuatu. These were exposed to the technology to create buy-in, and the ministers, government representatives, researchers, and university professors were then invited to visit Kenya to get exposure to the technology, interact with the beneficiaries, and then we organized an icipe mission to the Pacific, to identify if the BSF exists in the Pacific, because importing would be difficult, but the good news is that we found it there in all the countries. And then we also assessed the local conditions for black soldier fly to grow in the Pacific or to be farmed in the Pacific, and engaged in different media campaigns to raise awareness and met key government officials. So from there, we then conducted stakeholder engagement to, after knowing about the technology, what would be the country priority areas where they would want to apply this technology in agriculture or environment. So after identifying these needs, then we engaged on capacity building, whereby we co-selected country champions, the people that would be trained to become champions for spreading this technology, for implementing this technology across the 3 countries. And these are the people we met last year. And then after that, we have so far trained more than 30 country champions, spanning from researchers, farmers, and entrepreneurs who have become country champions. This training took place between March and May last year. And then after that, the training we were able to establish pilots across the region in the target countries, and then we are conducting community sensitization. We have so far designed a 4-year project that is aiming at adapting this technology to the Pacific, especially to the climate and organic waste streams that are present in the Pacific, establish the business potential and generate evidence for scaling and commercialization. And then what do I want to tell you, as my moderator warns me of time, is that icipe has demonstrated the power of insects as small creatures that can create impact on waste by delivering benefits for waste management, food security, climate resilience, and livelihood enhancement. And we think that scaling this solution to the Pacific can provide, scaling this innovation to the Pacific can provide solutions to the similar challenges, but then we need to adapt the technologies and ensure that they are necessary multi-stakeholder partnerships and capacity building. This should be guided by the necessary policy and regulatory framework for quality control. And then my take home is that with these insect-based technologies, we are realizing that what we once called waste is becoming one of the most powerful tools. Black soldier fly is helping farmers to rebuild soil health, increase yield, and farm in harmony with nature. So join us to scale black soldier fly to contribute to solutions and transform agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really quite an interesting set of products and methods and so forth to support the region. That's very, very interesting. So we'll move along, and last up we've got call up Dr. Tony Patterson, Senior Principal Researcher at the Queensland Department of Primary Industries. So today we'll hear examples from Southeast Asia and Queensland that show the future of disease management, and this time it's Panama disease tropical race 4, lies in building local capacity, supporting ecology transition, and helping growers continue to produce bananas.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much to the Crawford Fund for allowing me this opportunity to speak, and thank you very much to the audience for staying with us to the end there. It's great information, but it's a lot to take in. And I'd also like to thank ACR for the 20 years of research which this talk is going to be built on. And it's about Panama disease, which is a devastating soil-borne disease which really affects the livelihoods of smallholder growers. So blame is quite often given out, lumped on smallholder growers because of the spread of the disease. So today I want to move beyond blame towards collective learning, capacity building, and action. So just a bit of background on Panama disease. It's a soil-borne disease. So once it's in the soil, it's there forever. I'm just going to, it's not very, the laser needs recharging, I think. But it's in the centre of is a disease cycle. So it moves into the roots of the plants. It blocks up the vascular tissue, the plant dies, the spores return to the soil, and then every time that you go through one of those disease cycles, there's an exponential increase in the amount of inoculum within the soil. So you go from a healthy plantation that you see on the left to a devastated plantation that you see on the right in under 3 years from the first time the disease reaches a plantation. It's under 1 year if the disease is already there. But it also can take more than 10 years, and it's really management which sets the speed at which the disease progresses. And that's really what I'd like to highlight within this presentation. So Panama disease, or Fusarium wilt tropical race 4, is now found in 27 countries around the world, and it's really devastating that export banana industry. But it's Southeast Asia where the disease really began, And that's where we can learn a lot from what has happened in our own region about how they've adapted and how the disease has impacted on the livelihoods of banana growers. And this is the region that we've been working on with ACR funding. So Australia has actually had probably the longest history in research in this disease. It was first described in the 19th century by Joseph Bancroft in Brisbane, who linked the Fusarium fungus to the symptoms that were being seen within banana plants. But since then, we've really evaluated research on cultivar responses, pathogen races, diagnostics, and now we're moving into farming systems, which is the work that I've been mainly involved in. So why should Australia then invest in banana research and TR4 if we have this long history? Well, the TR4 has only been in the main banana growing region in North Queensland, where I'm based, since 2015. So we were trying to prepare the industry for what would happen when the disease arrived. And to do that, we had to go then to where the disease started in Southeast Asia. So we used this system of learning really what was happening in TR4 affected countries. We then see what worked and what didn't work. We then develop these concepts with our partners, and then in Australia, and then we tested them and validated them overseas, and then we bring back the outcomes to Australia and then adapt it to our systems and share that information around regionally. So that type of approach has actually had a benefit cost ratio of 71 to 1 from an independent ACR research. So if we highlight that within what was shown earlier this morning, it really shows the value of the bananas to the livelihoods of smallholder growers in Southeast Asia. But the early lessons we really learned from our work working in Southeast Asia was really highlighting what not to do. And I was talking about this last week to banana growers in a roadshow series of what we'd learnt from the work we've been doing overseas. And it really comes down to 5 themes. It's don't introduce tropical race through planting materials, soil movement, or machinery. It's also don't ignore those landscape risks of water movement, your neighbours, and what's on the boundary of your banana farm. And it's don't overlook the risks, the diagnostic symptoms or misdiagnose or try and hide those symptoms and think it'll go away, because that's a sure recipe for disaster. And it's also don't create a simplified farming system which favours the disease, and I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. And don't rely on silver bullets or anyone to solve the problem for you. There's a lot that banana growers can do now that can help reduce their vulnerability to the disease and build those resilient systems. So just going back to that farming system approach, it's when working overseas and going on farms, we find that the smallholder growers with these diversified cropping systems seem to be less impacted by the disease than some of these larger scale industrial type monocultures. And we're trying to understand, well, why does that happen? How can we then take the diversification that we see in the smallholder growers and then apply the productivity we get in those industrial export monocultures into a more agroecological system? And that's what we're trying to do in Australia and trying to encourage with our overseas partners. But it's the smallholder growers in many countries are locked into those export systems because of the way that they're contracted with a lot of the exporting companies that they're growing for. So then those smallholder growers that are then locked into those systems get blamed for spreading the disease. And it's not due to negligence, it's due to their capacity to be able to respond to the increase of the disease. They're restricted and constrained by land, capital, finance, technical support, and access to clean planting material. So their vulnerability is really around biological, economic, and it's social as well. So there is a lot of reasons why smallholder growers are the hardest impacted by this disease. So we want to move beyond the blame and give growers a practical ways to understand their risks and make better decisions. And that's where we're up to now with developing a disease risk tool and an information package. And so this is a shameless book promotion through ACR, which is up the back there, where we have a lot of information for growers and their advisors on how to develop more resilient farming systems. So what we did on the screen there is develop a tool which then takes growers' scenarios, different scenarios, whether they have the disease or don't have the disease, and whether it's widespread or just a recent incursion. We then look at the outcomes that may have, whether it's you're trying to reduce the likely incursion or reduce the spread of the disease, or are you trying to reduce livelihood loss? And then we apply 6 different disease management principles. Firstly, the location of the disease, then it's prevention, protection, it's reduction of inoculum, resistance, and then that commitment, that social part of the things, the commitment of growers to reducing that disease. So just showing how this works across 3 different case studies where we piloted our tool within Australia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. It's based on the risk outcomes. So what we see for Australia is we're trying to prevent that disease threat. So it's how do we stop that incursion happening. In the Indonesia, it's a disease incursion has happened already. So how do we stop that disease spread and the crop loss? In the Philippines, the disease is widespread. How do we then reduce the livelihood loss and protect the livelihoods of those smallholder growers? And to do that, we've set this framework, but there's no one answer for each situation. It's different, and we need to be able to have that flexibility depending on the farming systems in the context that we're working in. So for Australia, it's about prevention. With incursion being the greatest threat, it's prevention, surveillance, and biosecurity. For Indonesia, reducing crop losses, it's about cultivar diversity and cropping diversity, and that works for their smallholder systems. And then for the Philippines, where the disease is widespread, it's about reducing the inoculum and then also promoting that soil health then to suppress the disease. And let me give you a practical example of that. This is Mr. Arnold De La Serna. He's a smallholder grower in the Mindanao, in Davao del Norte region, has 12 hectares of bananas. He was originally wiped out by tropical race 4. And so his answer to get back into production is not one product, but an integrated system that's based on rotation, clean planting material, getting his soil health right through pH management, through proper nutrient management. He's using biology to help support that microbial component. He's using biosecurity. He's removing those infected plants out of his system. He manages his water, cropping system, and he's keeping informed, and he shares his knowledge with his supporters. And it's a system of adaptation and not a silver bullet. And if we apply our risk tool to this system, we find that he has a moderate risk of livelihood loss. But most of his challenges, 88% of them are within his control. His biggest challenge are his neighbours, who are all infected with the disease. So his solution is not just one thing, but it's to rely on other strategies to overcome that. So the protection, the reduction, and the commitment. And so that management then reduces his vulnerability. It doesn't take away the risk, but it reduces the impact of the disease on him. And if we ask, well, what is success? Well, if he's successful, he's actually bought out his neighbours because he can grow bananas and his neighbours can't. So Australia is seen as, I guess, as a bit of a global leader in TR4 management because of the strategies that we've had in place on biosecurity and reducing the amount of the impact of the disease. And it's through this strong industry coordination and international partnership which has supported this. And it's because we've learnt a lot within the industry about what not to do by working overseas, and then we're invested in research on what to do. But there's still a lot more to do that we need to do to keep moving forward the industry and building that. And I think agroecology, I guess, is the future of what we're trying to push the banana industry as a framework of transitioning into more resilient types of systems, not only for TR4, but also for climate change and for other shocks that may impact bananas. So if we look at on the screen at level 0, we're seeing these really exposed systems that I highlighted earlier that are very vulnerable to TR4 and fusarium disease occurring. Then it's a transition into improving efficiency, then substituting with softer inputs and biological inputs, and then it's redesigning the systems about being more with ground covers and more organic matter inputs and trying to make that more resilient, and then reconnecting with the whole food supply chain. But as we transition along those different levels, soil biology plays an increasing important role, and it's understanding the mechanisms that the organisms do to support resilient plants that we need to understand, and that's part of where we're moving with our research. So let me give you a quick example of a agroecological innovator. So this is Frank and Diane Sharker from North Queensland, just down the road from where I live. And they've got the red tip or eco-organic bananas. So they've got their farm, and this is a representation of their farm, and there's a lot happening on that farm which they're undertaking. So I'll break it down. Firstly, it's biosecurity. Access is controlled. Then they've got these diversified vegetated boundaries, so it acts as a physical and a biological protection around their farms. And then within the farms, they have the same types of vegetation. Then soil health is critical to them and their understanding of the system. They have vegetated ground covers everywhere, lower inputs of fertiliser and agrochemicals. It's a family farm, so they're in it for the long term. They're not there for short-term gains, and they want to hand that over to the next generation. And then they've also got this unique brand and education, so the red wax, and then they have people coming onto their farms, which they school groups, etc. Then they're connected to their markets, but they're also interested in the information and continually improving that system, and then they can validate that through external auditing. So it's not just one thing, it's many things. And then I guess to wrap up all this, it's the real message is, in the past, it's international experience shows us what not to do. The present tools target realistic actions and resources. And the future is about agroecological transitions can build resilience to TR4 and other shocks. So TR4 cannot be managed through blame or one solution. The use of integrated tools can help guide advisors and with the conversations about how to manage that. It's not prescriptive. And then it's about this collaboration. So really it's about assessing, adapting and redesign. And with that, my time's up. So I'd really like to acknowledge ACR for their continuing support for this type of work, and also Hort Innovation, Queensland Government, University of Queensland, the Crawford Fund for allowing me to talk about this, and all the collaborations we've worked with partners overseas, which has been critical for this work. And also this work is possible because growers allowed us to learn from their experiences. And another piece of gratuitous self-promotion is I've been running a TR4 knowledge exchange series with a different topic every month. And so if you want to know more, I recommend that you join in. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. So I think we've just had 4 pretty excellent case study examples of practical outcomes that can be delivered from research, and just the partnerships and the interdisciplinary approach and the persistence as well that's gone in across these projects. Now, before I jump in with questions, I think given the engagement we've had before, I'm happy to take questions from the audience. So we have one right at the front, straight up, excellent. And then happy to take others, but let's go to the front in the first instance. And if you've got others, flick your hand up and I'll keep an eye out.
Hi, I'm Anshul from the Trobe and Plant for Space. Thanks for amazing talks. I think my question is in general, but also for SunRice and industry partners as well. Because when I also have some industry partners whom we work with, and we start with saying, let's collaborate on a project. And we start by collaboration, and we the initial exchange is through information. Second is through in-kind, such as the seed, or we call like the recipes for cultivation and all those things. But then when there's a sensitive point where you have to ask for money, that, so okay, we have shared information, we shared in kind, but to do a research, like in my PhD as well, how do we approach that? Like when we have to talk about the money part, what's the way to say it, or what's the way to approach or present it? And and we get it as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, corporates don't have endless money, and we all have budgets, just like you have budgets. For SunRice, it's about a link to our strategy. So we're very, very clear on what our strategy to 2030 is. We've got, it's effectively set in stone. We might have to iterate it as, geopolitics gets in the way of things. But for us to look at funding a project or a series of projects, it has to have an acute link to our strategy and what we want to deliver by 2030. But also it has to be able to support some of those input mechanisms to be able to reach the strategy. So the reason why we fund, for example, ACER is because, as Jaquie highlighted, we bought a mill in Lapvo. Vietnam is really part of our long-term rice sourcing strategy. The work that ACER does allows us to have longer-term contracts with farmers, which is not common in a lot of parts of Southeast Asia, as opposed to buying what we'd call fair and reasonable rice, so rice that could come from brokers, aggregators, be traded along the Mekong, things like that. So it gives us more oversight of our supply chain. So I think what I would say is that where you're asking a corporate in particular for that funding, go and research what their strategy is, find out what the key link is between your project and the strategy that company wants to deliver. And when you're approaching them for investment, make that front and centre as to why they should invest in it.
Excellent. Thank you. Always a good question. We've got a question at the back over here as we go. And
thank you very much. Abdul Jabbar from University of Melbourne. I'm an academic there. My question is for Dennis. So great work, great success story. Could you please just elaborate a bit more on the drug discovery? You briefly mentioned in your talk that there are some further avenues which could be explored in terms of the drug development and so on. So if you can add more information there, please.
Thank you so much. And this is mainly related to the chitin and chitosan that are used as carriers for efficient delivery of the drugs or medicine to the target body part. Yeah, that's the current application. And there is a company called Discovery Lab in the USA that is advancing this. Thank you.
Excellent. There's another question just in the middle. Here we go. The mic is about to be there.
Hi, Tony Fisher, ANU, ex-ACR. I'm usually asking lots of questions, and I'm only intervening now because I thought we've had an excellent series of 3 presentations. And my question, I suppose, is to the Crawford Fund, is why are these things not being better promoted to the Australian public? It is something which should sell international collaborative agricultural research like hotcakes. And we need to take advantage of these wonderful projects.
Who wants to go first? I guess it's how are we not selling this research and the collaboration internationally? Is that, yeah. And so how do we do that better? How do we tell our story?
Yeah,
Tell it nationally because we've told it internationally.
I think we are. I think, you know, and look, maybe it's not as pervasive as what it needs to be among the academic, etc. community, but SunRice talks about ACR as often as we can. You know, prime example, we met with members of the Vietnamese government yesterday. ACR was front and centre of those conversations. It's been integral to how we've built a lot of our relationships in Vietnam. It's often featured in our annual report, not that I expect many people in this room to read corporate annual reports in their spare time, but it is something that we talk about and promote. It's used to build relationships. It's used to identify other projects where we might be able to invest as well. But, you know, I don't know if you're talking about why it isn't promoted more in, for example, the media. I mean, it's probably $1 million question, right? The media is only going to report on things that they think an audience is going to read, and to be honest, it's a very good news story, and so unfortunately that means it doesn't get as much media attention as the bad news stories.
Having said that, in our final report, we've got 95 media engagements, largely in Vietnam, but there were a few Australian finance and Grains newspaper that did pick up the story. But yes, it could be improved on, Tony.
Yeah, and I guess I'll answer on behalf of bananas, and we have a collaboration with the Australian Banana Growers Council, like SunRice with the rice growers, and they certainly are well aware of the impacts that the ACR funding has had for their industry, because that's what a lot of their responses have been built on. And I think probably where we fall down is with some of our higher management within my organisation, which don't always get to see what the value of research is, and how that then impacts on further down. But I think at a ground level, it's certainly well understood what these stories have done for horticulture and for especially the banana industry.
Thank you. And I think it's some good observations. I mean, as was mentioned this morning, there are long lead times between investment and outcomes in a lot of this work, but I think all these examples have shown that there's returns both to the communities in which we're working in overseas, but also back home. The learnings that you were talking about, Tony, bringing that back, and I think all had examples where we could tie back to things, to be it APSIM modelling and all the rest, where we could tie back to issues here. And I guess part of that story is telling that two-way street as we go through. But I know I can see Lucy wandering around, so our time is up. So just a big thanks again, if you could join me in thanking the speakers for an excellent session. I think it was really an excellent series of case studies that really took us into the practicalities